Okay, guys, then let's start. Thanks for coming. We have almost made it. It's the last talk. Really excited. So let's get into it. Very briefly, introduction of myself. I've studied informatics and economics. I have worked 10 years since then in mostly tech companies, also in language learning companies, among others at Rosetta Stone. And since we are at the Polyglot gathering and I don't have that much languages to brag about, I have at least one superpower, which is I speak Estonian. Yeah, so this is a robot, a bot, because it's about voice bots, right? But it's not about the bot I'm going to talk about. We'll come back to that later. So Santiago gave a really nice talk on Friday about the history of language learning, and I want to look at it as well, but from a different angle, and not from the angle of methods, but actually the angle of mediums. So humans have been always around for very good reasons as language teachers. Because you get prompt feedback from them, they can give you unlimited exercises, they can explain stuff perfectly, but they are not very flexible. You need to organize it, go to the courses, and they are not really very affordable. So we started to find ways to teach languages for self-learners while imitating what teachers are actually doing. And the first products we had were analog products, print products such as books and dictionaries. Then during the Second World War, audiolingual methods came up and we started learning listening and also speaking with tapes and CDs. But those mediums had the problem that the exercises were very narrow. Once you filled in the blanks in your exercise book, you were done. There were no more exercises. And you also didn't get any feedback. So whatever you did, you didn't really know if it's right or wrong. Sometimes you could look it up in the books, but it was very limited. But those mediums were more flexible. You could do them at home whenever you wanted, and they were more affordable. Things got really excited once we moved into digital mediums. I remember installing like first dictionary softwares on my Windows 95 PC and then being able to just look things up. Super exciting. Then things moved to online. A bit far away, okay. Then things moved to online and we saw explosion of different kinds of learning methods. There was a great talk this time about learning with music from YouTube. Last Polyglot gathering, there was a great talk about learning languages with Netflix. We have a big range of podcasts, web apps. Okay, sorry. I was touching the microphone. And then finally, actually, the language learning moved from the desk to the pocket with mobile apps. We could just do like Duolingo 5 minutes in a bus stop. Great products. You had prompt feedback of what we were doing. You still had kind of limited exercises because you could just do them over and over again, talking about language apps, for example. But you had some slight personalization, and they were even more flexible, and they were even more affordable to the point of a lot of free language learning software and products. Right now, we're in the middle of a phase where we actually connect the humans with digital machines in forms of products such as italki, where you can actually learn from humans through the technology. Also with great apps like Amikumu that connects learners offline through technology. So you get prompt feedback, you get unlimited exercise because you can ask the people, right? You get pretty good explanations, depends if they're teachers or just tandem partners. But again, they are not that much affordable because humans are involved and humans are expensive, you pay them by hour. So the question is, where are we going to? What is the next evolutionary step in language learning? And from my experience at the language learning companies, we have done a lot of research on that. It seems that there are a few drivers that have always been there and will determine where we will go because they're most important. And those ones are efficiency. People learn languages because they want to communicate and they want to do it rather sooner than later. Nobody wants to waste time on methods that just don't work, right? And the second one is like a no-brainer, but it's like really important in my eyes. It's affordability, because if you choose a method or you will want to like to learn it, but you cannot afford it, for example, like private teachers, it doesn't matter for you. You just cannot do it. So to see where we're going, it's always good to look at trends. So I want to show you 3 trends, and the first one is economical one. The language learning market, measured in revenue, in dollars, is declining. We have more people learning languages, but they spend less money on language learning. And this happens because there is a shift in the language learning market from analog to digital. So the digital part is growing really, really fast, while the analog part is just going down. And this is not some conspiracy of language learning companies. This is what the users, what the learners actually want to do. The second one is that we are moving behavioral-wise from thumb to voice. 1/5 of search queries today done on Google through mobile smartphones are not typed in, but actually spoken. And there are estimates that in a few years, this number will be higher as 50%. So most of you guys will be here using voice search really, really soon. And talking about language learning, it also makes sense, right? If I want to type in sentences, we communicate in sentences, not just clicking on pictures or filling in blanks. It's really, really hard to type things in, but it's really easy to use the voice. And we will see more and more voice-based products in the future. And the third trend we are seeing is that makes everything possible is the rise of artificial intelligence and the developments that have been made in this field in few last years. We're not talking about 10 years, but maybe 2 and 3 are enormous. There's been an explosion of the development. And for language learning, these are 3 areas. Mainly, the one is voice recognition. It means transcribing what I'm just right now talking into the text. Then natural language processing is to analyze this text and make a sense of it, what I'm talking about. And speech synthesis is actually producing a human-sounding voice to talk back to me and give back any feedback, whatever the system wants. And those developments are mainly due to machine learning. So we ask also at these language learning companies, we ask the people like, okay, if money will be no restriction, you're going to in 3 months to Greece, you want to learn Greek, what will be the best way? And the people come up with an answer that can be generalized into something like, well, I will most likely hire a private teacher, but with a hassle of coordinating time. So we believe that it's still like we have always been trying to mimic the private teacher. There is a method that works really well, that at the end, we will come up with something that mimics it better than the current solutions, and we will mimic it to a point where you actually don't really realize actively that you're not talking to a human. So this solution will be highly efficient, and it will be affordable, giving you proper feedback, exercises, explanations, and as I said, flexible and affordable. So what I mean by that, I want to show you a vision of how it might look like. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Her, a great movie. It's about a guy who falls in love with his personal assistant, a personal voice assistant. And this is the setup process the guy is going through while setting up the system.
So do you know what I'm thinking right now?
Well, I take it from your tone that you're challenging me. Maybe because you're curious how I work? Do you want to know how I work?
Yeah, actually. How do you work?
Well, basically, I have intuition. I mean, the DNA of who I am is based on the millions of personalities of all the programmers who wrote me. But what makes me, me, is my ability to grow through my experiences. So basically, in every moment, I'm evolving. Just like you.
Wow. That's really weird.
Is that weird? Do you think I'm weird?
Kind of.
Why?
Well, you seem like a person, but you're just a voice in a computer.
I can understand how the limited perspective of an unartificial mind would perceive it that way. You'll get used to it.
Okay, and this is exactly what the scientists, engineers around the world are working on right now to create systems that learn themselves and being able to communicate better from this experience. And let's see how we get there. So a human, me talking right now, out of 100 words, in average you will understand 95. we have an error rate of 5.1% about of speech recognition. But the human brain is amazing. You can actually fill in the gaps with the context, with the sentences I said before, I said after, the words I said before, I said after. So looking just right now at the speech recognition, the systems have actually passed the human capabilities. Google algorithm can today transcribe with a higher accuracy speech than a human can, which I think is amazing. But as I said, the ability to fill in the gaps and context is still a problem that the machines have. Because some of you might think like, okay, Siri, I have to try to use it, it never understands me. That's exactly why. So let me explain in short how machine learning works. And I know it's like the last talk. We have been a long conference. Everybody's tired, so I will do it with cats because everybody likes cats, and then now I have your attention. So if you want to teach a computer how to recognize pictures and tell if it's a cat or not, what we try to do is to explain the computer and say, look, cat has 2 eyes, it has 2 ears, it has a nose, it has forms like a head and then a body. And if you see something like this is a cat. It sounds good, it doesn't work. So how machine learning works is that, these are the examples why it doesn't work, is that you come up with endless possibilities where these rules just don't apply. So you will need to add like new rules that like look at this and look at that, ultimately being it like a crazy cat lady algorithm just that cannot handle it. So what we do today is we use training data. We take hundreds of pictures of cats. We give it to the machine learning algorithm and say like, look, this is a cat, this is a cat, this is a dog, and this is a cat, and figure out yourself why it's a cat or why is it a dog. And the computer then figures it out, the algorithm, and builds a model, which is essentially the patterns itself tries to recognize. And it's not easy even for humans to understand how these models look like. But if you think about it for a second, it's very similar to how baby learning algorithms work. Like cat, dog, and the babies just repeat it, and this is the way they learn it. So now we have trained the model. We can throw in random pictures to the algorithm and say like, look, here are the pictures. And the algorithm then will give us back something like this. It will say like, okay, this is 98% probability this is a cat, 80% probability this is a cat, and this is not a cat, this is a dog. Right? And we can use this algorithm, just like we do also with babies, to tell, okay, this is not a cat, this is a cheetah, and improve the algorithm and build better models on the output also from the algorithms. And why did I show you cats? Yeah? You might think, I heard somebody thinking loud in the back, saying like, hey, we're at the Polyglot conference, why are we talking about cats? Because the machine learning for voice is working exactly the same way. But instead of cat pictures, we look at the voice, we feed it with a system, and we build models. And voices are represented often as sound waves, that's why I took it here. And doing it this way, the model will also understand different accents. So we could say like, okay, this is a hello in British, this is a hello in American, and this is a hello how a Chinese guy says it. And if we have enough training data, we have a good model, and the model is able to understand all of those different accents. So now we can give the algorithm a voice. That algorithm doesn't know what it is, and it will tell us what it is. So 92% it says like, hi fellow polyglots, 81% hi hello polyglots, or 78% 5 fellow polyglots. And it's up to the developers, up to us to decide how do we process it and which one we think is right. The things are a bit more complicated, and that's why also voice recognition is gaining so much momentum right now. There are a few reasons, but one is that the hardware has become extremely fast and extremely good processing this particular machine learning problems. And the second one is also, of course, the algorithms have got better. So what actually happens is we don't wait until I have speaking the whole sentence and then wait 3-4 seconds and try to transcribe it. But we do it constantly. So after 20 milliseconds, we send the data, we try to come up. So just about after 100 milliseconds, the system might already give you back like, okay, it's high, 92% probability, or the other high, 92% probability, and it will later on, then once it gets more and more of the audio coming in, like a few hundred milliseconds or a few seconds later, it will recognize, okay, the lower one, hi, fellow polyglots. Most likely it might be grammatically correct, right? It might be that somebody's hi, but it's probably not what we want to talk about. And dismiss it. And just a fun fact, I don't know if anybody uses already voice search. If you use Android, you can check it up later in the presentation. You can go to this site and you will hear anything you have ever spoken to your phone, like in Google's Assistant, for example, because of course Google also uses this audio to retrain their models and actually understand people better. Scary a bit. Yeah. Okay, so the issue we have now, as I just briefly said, is the context. We don't know. The machine learning algorithm still needs to decide, like, what is the context of this sentence and which one to take. And I want to show you a second. It's actually an audio. Is it this one? How do I get to the?
So how can I help you?
Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd.
Sure, give me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, what time are you looking for around?
At 12 p.m.
We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15.
Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.?
Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for?
Just a woman's haircut for now.
Okay, we have a 10 o'clock.
10 a.m. is fine.
Okay, what's her first name?
The first name is Lisa.
Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Great. Have a great day. Bye.
Okay, what I didn't tell you and what the hairdresser didn't know is that she was not talking to a human. She was talking to a robot, and there is a research project done by Google. It's called Google Duplex. And I think it's really amazing what we just heard for several reasons. The first reason is that the voice was really mimicking humans. It was making like, waiting a bit with the responses, and really sounding like a human voice. The second thing is that it was actually responding to an unexpected situation, because you cannot think about everything that happens, that this other person will say, because you don't know that in advance. And it was still able to handle all the situation and proactively also propose solutions. I don't know if you would have been tricked, but many people are. She was probably. And these are the developers eating some food they ordered this way from restaurants, and these guys definitely were tricked as well. So coming from here, it's not really far to think about learning situations when we can actually use it, because how we learn, for example, in the schools with the teachers is we simulate situations, right? We do like, okay, now ask for directions, you need to go there, or like doing restaurant situations. And we could also we can build situations where the bot starts the conversation with, let's say, hey Jason, based on your progress, I'd suggest we exercise a simple pass today. And then ask questions in simple past, like what did you do yesterday? And you as a learner will just talk about your day, and the bot will evaluate if you were correct or wrong and give you feedback on that, just to get you to understand simple past. And you might answer and say like, okay, I went to the Polyglot conference in Bratislava. And then the machine processes this input. And there was another talk, I didn't attend it, but I heard it was great, about building apps. And the guy told that it was really, really difficult. It's really difficult to build apps. And fortunately, we don't have to build everything our own. We can use a lot of APIs. We can use a lot of services from other companies just to solve like small parts of it. And this is a service from Google. If you send this sentence to the Google will give you this one back. And it will give you complete analysis of the sentence, including like what tense was it. And based on that, you can now evaluate if the user was speaking correctly. And in some cases, or in many cases, you don't even need to know really what the user was talking about, to validate if he was talking about simple past in a correct way. You don't really even need to understand the sentence completely. You could, of course, it would be better. So there's some more information Google gives, and I was looking into that, and I was really surprised that in terms of meaning, it also recognized that Bratislava is a city. You will get this information as a developer. And to my biggest surprise, it knows that Polyglot conference is an event, which is cool. It also gives some sort of other information. For example, it can detect if somebody is complaining or being positive. For that, I used another sentence. I'm happy to be at the Polyglot conference, and on a scale from -1 to 1, negative to positive, it got 0.6, which is a positive sentence, of course. So looking at the machine learning of machine teaching, just to sum it up, we see that every student becomes also kind of a training data, which leads to more experience for an intelligent system, for an intelligent bot teacher. And this eventually leads to possibilities where, for example, this teacher will categorize students, classify them into different learning types, and handle the learning types differently. For example, use a best method or exercises, or solve problems that particularly maybe Spanish learners have. It will know when to teach you what. It will learn it, actually, through the data. And it will learn also which content to use, because it's important to use content you like, otherwise you're not that motivated. So at the end, we will see a personalization on a level we have not seen before. And attention, a bold statement, I believe also not possible for the teachers. Because looking at the numbers, Duolingo has 25 million users, monthly users. How much experience has a teacher has to get 25 million students give him the experience? And looking on the other side, for the learner, it has also a lot of advantages. For example, it takes the fear out of looking stupid. People fear to talk to other people when they learn languages at the beginning, because there's another person looking at me and waiting for an answer, and I cannot come up with an answer that fast, and oh my God, what I'm going to say. But talking to a bot, it's not an issue. You can just, you don't need to fear anything, right? And there was another talk, I think it was on Thursday, where they told that different languages have different frequencies, sound frequencies. And in order to learn those languages, to speak those languages, you need to learn to speak those frequencies, which might not be existent in your language. So in order to be able to do that, you really need to train. You need to train your organs, you need to train your muscles. And you can do that with a bot, because the bot never gets bored of doing it over and over again. So you can build automism through repetition. So yeah, to the question, when will the teachers be replaced? The tasks of the teachers, the human teachers, are already changing now. And I want to present you 2 questions to think about. Like, out of this polyglot scene, of the polyglots, the more known polyglots you know, how many of them actually are actively teaching a language? Greek beginner, Spanish intermediate, and how much of them actually act more like coaches, motivators, trying to find the right methods for you and just keep you going. And for anybody who has done italki, how many of those teachers you have spoken to had like a plan for you, saying like, okay, this is my Greek beginners, it's going like 12 weeks, you start with this and that, and then we arrive at that. It's very, very similar role of teachers that actually act more like a coaches and motivators. And this is something we already see happening. It's happening, but there are some really tough challenges that we haven't been able yet to solve with artificial intelligence, and that's why we still also have the teachers, but we will solve them. The one is knowledge of the world. If in this hairdresser situation, the hairdresser would have asked like, I don't know, which football club do you like? Like just some random question. Probably the algorithm would be completely puzzled and explode, because it doesn't know how to react to this situation. It doesn't have the knowledge of the world. It's also difficult really to explain things. I showed it at the beginning in like how humans are able to find another ways to explain something differently. You don't understand it, I will find another way to explain it to you. And it's really difficult for machines, at least now. Also, it's really difficult to do more complex exercises. In language schools, you write essays, you write letters, you have not only dialogical but also monological speaking, where you speak several sentences after another, and you need to see and correct it in the context. And also finding the content. And the last one, which is, I think it's the most important one, it's the most hard one to actually solve, is the social element. Because whether we admit it or not, everybody likes to talk about himself. Everybody likes to hear himself talking about himself. So, and we do that because we know that the persons on the other side, we kind of convince them of being either a smart person or an interesting person or whatever. But there's no need, there's no sense to convince a bot about that, if you know that you're talking to a machine, right? So the machines still lack this genuine interest, which is really, really important. They also lack, to some extent, humor, and lack the ability to make themselves interesting and have a distinct character. So there are some, this is the final slide, there are some language products that already apply artificial intelligence. I don't know how many of you know DeepL.com. They use it to translate text. So they don't care about grammar. They don't care about rules. They don't look at if the sentence is syntax is correct. They don't care about it all. All they do is they have these machine learning algorithms that just somehow figure out how to translate one text to another. They have done it to training, sending a lot of training data of different of the same text in different languages, and it works amazing. I was completely blown off as I saw it. Google Translate recently also switched. Maybe you have noticed it has become much better in recently. I'm also happy to talk about my own startup, magiclingua.com. We built voice bots. You also have seen probably bots in Duolingo. A lot of voice interfaces in learning apps, also in Bubble and others. There's a research project from Microsoft. It's called Learn Chinese. It's also like a conversation-based learning. You just talk to a bot and learn Chinese by that. Last year's sponsor, this year, Jen is here from Linguist. They use artificial intelligence to decide when will you teach something and when will you ask it again. So it's kind of like a spaced repetition system on steroids. And what I personally also like is a Monly. You can look it up. It's a language learning app where they use chatbots at some certain stages, which is also really intelligent because it might ask you things like, where are you from? And you can tell whatever, you know, you could say like, soy de La Luna, and it will recognize it correct because it knows that, okay, somehow it makes sense, and I think it's really amazing. And feel free to share the ones you know. Thanks.
Please, if you have any questions, submit them on Slido so that all questions can be answered. If I may, I'll start with the first one. How do you prevent that the bot learns mistakes? For example, if he analyzes a language student as input data.
Very good question, very good question. The way you do it is, there was a slide I was showing, is actually basically just by retraining the model. So the students do mistakes, and you need to tell the machine what is a mistake and what is a correct one. And all you need is enough data, and after a while, the algorithm actually gets better and starting to understand the patterns and being able to tell himself what was correct or not. If it's related to the voice recognition, the question, I don't know, then recognizing, it's a huge problem. People think that because you're not able to pronounce, right? If I start now learning Greek, I probably have really bad Greek pronunciation. But the way you overcome this is the same. If you have like enough, most likely I have a German accent, even though I'm born in Estonia. If you have enough people talking German and learning German learning Greek in German, you will be able to retrain the model to understand really bad German accent. And it's easy to train because you are giving tasks to the student, and you will know also what comes back.
Do you see the rise of AI-assisted communication as a threat to multilingualism in the future?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I should have thought it a bit before. It's so obvious that it comes. I don't see it as threat. I don't see any technology as threat. I remember, I don't know when it was, like 2000 or something, when there was a huge outcry in Germany about the first cameras in the metros, and people were saying like, we are being observed and everything, and the society is now screwed up, and we are being monitored. Nobody talks about it today. Everybody's happy to catch these bad guys that actually do bad in the metros. And I think it's similar to many other technologies we are afraid of today. But if you think back, like, would you want to live like 100 years ago in the society? Then most of the people say like, yeah, it would be nice to go a few days and visit and see, but the life is better now. So I'm super optimistic that there is no threat, but just chances.
How is the feedback on your startup bot so far? What are the users most happy about, and what do they feedback the most?
They're most happy about speaking, because it's a really, really huge issue. Most people learn languages in order to speak at the end, but while they are learning, they spend most of the time actually filling in blanks or clicking pictures. So the voice part is actually the one that people are amazed about. They're amazed about also how well it actually understands the accents, because they know themselves that they have the accents. And I think it's also one of the parts that really needs the most practice when learning languages.
Do you think AI can work alongside a human teacher language exchange partner? You work with a bot at home, but also have human contact once a week?
Yeah, very good question again. Indeed, we have talked to many teachers, and we were first afraid that teachers will tell like, oh no, you're going to steal my job, and then like being kind of like skeptical and angry about it. But actually what comes back is that the teachers say like, they don't believe that bots can, in the near future, like replace this coaching aspect, this motivational aspect, and the social aspect. And what they see in the bots is more like they are just doing the repetitive, boring work that I have to do. No teacher is really happy to give you again and again and again the same exercises. They want to do something more that is a bit more difficult and is more human, which is actually being the coach and helping to guide the people.
Can the bots adapt to a specific user's learning style and preferences? For example, depending on my level, I may prefer more or less stringent error correction.
In theory, yes. I mean, it's theoretically possible. It's the question of who has implemented it. We haven't yet, because it's really complex. I don't know if linguist goes more into that direction. You can ask Jen. But yeah, in theory, it's possible.
There is a request if you can show the link, you know, the stalker link again.
The which link? This one, yeah. Yeah, you can look it up also on YouTube on a presentation later, you will see it.
Is the Magic Lingua app for free, and will it stay for free in the future?
It is for free now. Will it stay for free in the future? We haven't yet quite decided. Our focus right now is really to figure out the learning flows, to make sure that people are happy with the product itself and it's really useful, not just usable, but really useful. At the end, we are not an NGO, so we somehow need to figure out ways to monetize it. And there are different approaches. We don't know yet exactly.
What do you think about the earphones translators? AI-based or not?
Which one?
Earphones translators.
Earphone translations. Who had this question? Maybe you can elaborate. Like this. There's a Bragi and there's a Wavelabs systems. I think it doesn't matter if they're like in earphones or like it doesn't matter how you interact with them. The algorithms and the system behind it is definitely AI based. I hope so. Otherwise, it will not work that well.
Can AI-assisted language learning help protect and promote endangered languages?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, why not? Right? If you find ways to for everybody to learn it, especially endangered languages are characterized by not too many people speaking it. So if you have a bot and are able to speak it, it's much more easier you to find actually situations where you can practice it and learn it.
With recent advancements in speech recognition and auto-translation, do you see need for language learning go away if Google produces small earphone real-time translator?
I had this discussion yesterday at few beers, and I would say I believe it goes away at some point, the need, but I don't think it's just through earphone devices, because they exist today and they're clumsy to use. And some of you have used it yourself. I have done it, being in somewhere in the Asia and not being able to understand. You pull out your Google Translator and you speak into it, and then you just hold it and try to converse this way. People do it, but it's really awkward. Nobody does it here. So we still learn like normal to speak. What I believe, no worries. What I believe when it starts to happen is when we start to merge with the machines. Maybe once we're not using anymore our normal ears, but devices to extend and enhance our ears, then you can just build up these algorithms, and the signals coming to your brain doesn't matter then, like what is the interface of the input. You will get the language you need.
I unfortunately don't see any other question here on Slido, so if someone is still typing, I'll just give you a couple of more seconds. We have only, as you see, a mic with cable, so that's why I ask you to do it with the Slido.
Just be loud. Can you repeat the question? So the question was about YouTube. If I believe that there will be better methods than we have today, like learning faster. I think the way you learn faster if you practice more, right? And there are different things you need to do while learning, training your listening, training your speaking. And if you find tools that encourage you to do it more, then eventually you will learn faster. If I understood the question correct. Something new and different than just listening? Yeah, good question. Most likely there also will pop up new methods as it always evolves. I don't know if you attended the talk from Santiago. He was explaining like how people in the 1900s believed that it's the best thing to do, the way they learned, but somehow it still changed. And I'm very, very sure it will change in the future as well. Also the methods, not just the technology. Anything else? Okay, then thanks, we're done.